of Truth by Francis Bacon. What is truth? Said jesting Pilate, and wouldn't stay for an answer. Certainly there be that delight in giddiness and count it a bondage to fix a belief, affecting free will in thinking as well as in acting. Bacon here refers to Pontius Pilate, the governor of Judea, before whom Jesus was tried and condemned to death by crucifixion. And Pilate didn't wait for the answer when he asked, "What is truth?" Here, Bacon tries to say that people generally avoid truth, as truth binds us, puts us in inconvenience, while ambiguity, not taking a stand, it allows freedom. And though the sect of philosophers of that kind be gone, though those people who seek truth, who dwell in the world of truth, who live by the principle of truth be gone, yet there remain certain discoursing wits which are of the same veins, though there be not so much blood in them as was in those of the ancients. The present day philosophers are the paler versions of their steadfast predecessors. But it is not only the difficulty and labor which men take in finding out of truth, nor again that when it is found it imposeth upon men's thoughts that doth bring lies in favor. It's not just a reluctance to work hard to seek truth which dissuade people from truth, because there is a natural though corrupt love of the lie itself. Humans prefer the comfort of truth lies. One of the later schools of Grecians examined the matter and is at a stand to think what should be in it, that men should love lies, where neither they make for pleasure as with poets, nor for advantage as with a merchant. Unlike poets and merchants who lie for a purpose, people love lie for the lie's sake, for its own sake. But I cannot tell the same truth as a naked and open daylight that doth not show the masks and memories and triumphs of the world half so stately and dainty as candle lights. Truth is like that daylight which does not give you exaggerated, beautified versions. Truth may perhaps come to the price of a pearl that showeth best by day, but it will not rise to the price of a diamond or a carbuncle that showeth best in varied lights. Truth is like daylight, while lie is like that of the candlelight, which we all prefer. Even the photographs we take are beautiful when they are at the backdrop of, dark background. Truth is like a pearl, while lie is that diamond which shines in darkness, which is more valuable than pearls. A mixture of lie doth ever add pleasure. Doth any man doubt that if they were taken out of humans' minds, vain hopes, flattering opinions, false valuations, imaginations as one word and the like, but it would leave the minds of a number of men poor shrunken things, full of melancholy and indisposition, and unpleasing to themselves? If you don't believe that, if you don't have false hopes, if you don't have vain opinions, if you don't have bright future, the promise of the bright future, the promise of a better world, wouldn't you think that our lives will be bland? It would be, without any color, without vain hopes, human life is bland. One of the fathers in great severity called poesy vinum demonum, the devil's wine, because it fills the imagination with lies. But that is not which is dangerous. It is but with the shadow of a lie. Yes, but it is not that lie that passeth through the mind, which doth hurt, but the lie that sinketh in, the lie that sink in your mind, which settle in your mind, the collective consciousness of of a society probably, that doth the hurt, like the legends, like the myths that tells you half-baked truths and how people starts believing them. Those lies will hurt. But howsoever these things are thus in men's depraved judgments and affections, yet truth, which is only the judge of itself, truth teaches you that the inquiry of truth, the search of truth, which is the wooing of it, the knowledge of truth, which is the presence of it, which is the attaining of it, and the belief of truth, which is the enjoying of it, which is the relishing of it. That is the sovereign, ultimate good of human nature. Now, Bacon turns to theological dimension of truth. He speaks of the creation of world. The first creature of God in the works of the days was the light of senses. The last was the light of reason. And the Sabbath day work was the illumination of spirit. First, he breathed light upon the face of matter, chaos, he brought in order. Then he breathed light into the face of man. He gave wisdom to human beings. And still he breathed and inspired light into the face of his chosen. Even now, God inspires, even now, God breathes wisdom to the faces of his chosen, of his followers. God gave humans vision as well as wisdom. The power of enlightenment enabled men to distinguish right from wrong. It made them the superior race. The poet that beautified a sect that was otherwise inferior to the rest. Right from the beginning, poets are called liars, right? That is why they were considered inferior to the rest. But they said it excellently well. It is a pleasure to stand upon the shore and to see ships tossed upon the sea. A pleasure to stand in the window of a castle and see the battle and adventures that are below. Here, poets, they aptly narrate two breathtaking experiences because you are standing atop, you are standing afar, and you are taking the pleasure associated with these two scenes. But no pleasure is comparable to the standing upon the vantage ground of truth, because that is a hill not to be commanded, where the air is always clear and serene. Truth will see through all sorts of mists and wakes or wake scenes, and to see the errors and wanderings of the mist and tempest in the valley below. From there, you get the sight, the vision, the wisdom to see through things, through follies. So always that this prospect be with pity and not with swelling or pride. A person who attains truth, the ultimate wisdom, will never be proud, will never swell his chest with pride, because that is where heaven dawns upon earth. When man's mind move in charity, rest in providence, and turn upon the poles of truth, attaining the wisdom of ultimate truth will humble the bearer. It will make him benign towards others, and he will be charitable, and there shall be heaven on earth. To pass from theological and philosophical truth, which comprise the previous two segments, to the truth of civil business, let us speak of ordinary matters. See, it is acknowledged even by those who don't practice it, those who don't practice the truth, the way of the truth, that clear and round dealing is the honor of human's nature. Straightforward, honest, truthful dealings, that is the honor of a person's nature. And the mixture of falsehood is compared to the alloy in coin of gold and silver, which will be very efficient in crafting beautiful designs out of it. But it will make the metal bad. It will decrease the quality of the metal when you sell the jewelries, the beautiful designs, the beautifully crafted jewelries. The jeweler will say, see, there is this much of alloy in it, therefore the value is depreciated. For those, for these winding and crooked courses, they are like the goings of the serpents. The serpent is connected to lies symbolically. And the serpent doesn't go upon feet, that we all know. It goes upon the belly, which is a baser movement. There is no vice that doth so cover a man with shame as to be found false and perfidious. And therefore, Montaigne says prettily, when he inquires the reason why the word of the lie should be such a disgrace and such an odious charge, The worst shame which can befall upon a person is to be found false. The word of the lie, it brings such a disgrace. But Montaigne says, if it be well weighed, when you say that a man is capable of lying, when a man dares to lie, he is brave towards God, because when you lie, you are actually lying to God. There is no trouble in it because we are not going to face God on a daily basis, probably. But we say those lies because we are unable to face our own kind, fellow beings. We are covered towards human beings. For a lie faces God and it will shrink from man. Surely, the wickedness of the falsehood and breach of faith, it cannot be possibly so highly expressed as in that it shall be the last peal to call the judgment of God upon the generations of man. The falsehood, its wickedness, and how the faith is being breached, these are all expressed in the perfect manner when when Bacon called forth the judgment of God. Because when Christ makes his return, upon the second coming of Christ, he shall not find faith upon earth, because everybody is lying, everybody is dishonest, everybody breach faith and adhere to falsehood. So he shall not find faith upon the earth, he shall find only sinners.